Welcome to Integrate Online, presented by the West Virginia University Reed College of Media. It offers a renowned online master's program in marketing communication. The event is brought to you in partnership with the award-winning WVU chapter of the Public Relations Student Society of America. If you are part of a PRSSA chapter, please use the chat function and let us know you're here. We'd like to say hello to all of our PRSSA friends from around the country. Thanks for joining us tonight. Tonight, as you know, we'll be discussing the event planning industry, an industry with some big changes and lots going on, and certainly had lots of impact. So some of these experts are going to be able to share some pretty remarkable stories about how they've pivoted, and I'm excited to hear it. So without further ado, I want to introduce our guests that represent some of the largest events and venues in the United States. During the session, I would ask you to keep your mics muted and send your questions in the chat feature. I'll be watching those, and a little later, I'll be able to call on you to address some of those. So I'm going to start out with Doreen, because you're the first one on my screen. I'm going to ask all of the speakers to introduce themselves. And in their introduction, they're going to showcase for us one of their most interesting projects, so you can sort of understand what each of them does. Doreen, you want to lead us off?
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Doreen Sullivan. I'm the owner of a company called Post No Bills. It's over 3 decades of entertainment marketing, events, branding, creative work for clients like ESPN and Disney and Paramount. I'm in the entertainment world in events, and my job is primarily in the environmental decor, the branding, the theming of an event, and how to activate a brand and really transform an environment for the guests. So I've built an incredible career. I've had once in a lifetime opportunities on a regular basis. I actually have the tags from the 5 Super Bowls that I've worked on for ESPN, where I did all of the environmental decor, branding, and decorating with ESPN. So I think my favorite projects have been in mass room, high VIP entertaining, and really turning those VIPs from I'm at this event because I'm being, treated, to my sponsorship and my relations to this client, to I'm enjoying this event because I'm now submerged in an environment that's taken me out of the business side of it and into the event itself. So I think that what I will bring to this chat here is that environmental decor and that insight into really how to transform a space and to look at things that people never think about. I'll leave you with one example so that we can introduce everybody else. But when you go into a large party and there are 5,000 people and you have 10 friends in the room and you can't find them because there is nothing to stand under to talk to your friend and say, meet me under the E or the S or the P or the N. So, when you transform a space, it starts at the bottom and goes all the way to the top and all around. And it's stuff like that I built my career on.
All right, that's wonderful. Thanks, Dee. Candace, let's kick it to you now.
Sure. Hi, everyone. So happy to be here. I am Candace Montgomery, and I am the Vice President of Experiential for Essence Communications. Essence Communications is a media company. We produce the largest cultural festival in the country called the Essence Festival. Prior to COVID, we were 500,000 people strong, heading to New Orleans every July 4th weekend. We also have a roster of over 50 events that we do throughout the year, different things from our wellness house to our Hollywood house to our Black Women in Hollywood. Our property, our media company primarily focuses on African American women. But similar to Doreen, we touch on a wide range of different what we call verticals. And most of these verticals are really aligned with the passion points of African American women, and specifically the women that, our target audience. And so we are creating experiences that specifically talk to her, that she's interested in, that she wants to go out or now tune into, that speak directly to her passion points. As I mentioned, wellness, entertainment, finance, personal finance, how am I going to keep money in my pockets, career, personal development. So all of those things from a brand perspective. And we work with a lot of big partners as well. Also Disney, Ford, McDonald's, Walmart, to some of the smaller brands as well. So I'm happy to be here, happy to talk to all of you, and looking forward to a great conversation.
All right. Chris, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Chris Williams. I'm the Director of Operations at the Colonial Life Arena in Columbia, South Carolina for 3 years now. And in those 3 years, we've had record-breaking financial gains until COVID started. We've had, Elton John and a bunch of A-list celebrities and concerts. The two ladies before me did such a great job of describing what they do. They do such a great job. So I worked 1 year in minor league baseball, and I decided that I liked air conditioning way more than I liked being outside. So I decided that working in arenas was way better. So for 15 years now, I've worked in arenas and civic centers, and I've tried to bring an element of customer service to all of the people that I interact that may not have been treated quite like that ever before, just giving it as exceptional as I can. Some of the challenges that I've faced over the last 15 years, the best event that I've ever worked is the NCAA tournament. We hosted the first round last year in 2019. What a remarkable event that was, with all the logistics and people coming and going and security, and just incredible. That was, and then maybe even here locally in the national market, but here locally, we did last year, right before COVID started, we did a Post Malone concert on a Friday night. And then the next morning, on Saturday morning, we opened doors at 10:30 a.m. for a women's basketball game. So there were smells and cleaning and disgustingness that we had to get up, and my team did a remarkable job. And the women never even, those fans and the women never even knew that we had a game. So I'm quite proud of what we've done here. So that's me. And like I said, Carrie Ring down there was one of my coworkers a long time ago, and she's part of why I'm here.
Great. So when Chris told me about this Post Malone concert, of course, I had to go look it up, but I'm guessing some of you kids on the screen right now probably already knew who that was. All right. So our final panelist, Heidi from Morgantown to Mandalay Bay. Tell us your story. Who are you?
Hi, everybody. Yes, my name is Heidi. I am originally from Morgantown. So for all the folks that are WVU students, let's go Mountaineers. However, I attended the other university in West Virginia. We are. So had to just represent the Marshall a little bit. I'm excited to be here. So I moved to Vegas after grad school, and I started working at Mandalay Bay. I originally joined the team of human resources, and I did employee engagement. So I was able to plan parties for 8,000 employees. So it was a really cool gig. And then in 2007, I transferred into the convention segment and started working on the conventions. And so Doreen and Candace would be my customers. So basically, I would work hand in hand with them. And so what I often say, and I had a leader that used to say this, and I've stolen it from her, but what a convention services manager does is we are the conductor of an orchestra. Basically, we're the ones telling all the various people, okay, banquets, this is your gig. Over here, hotel operations, you need this information. So we take all the information from all the entities, gather it, and then distribute it out to the teams. So everybody's vision and all the fun things they want to do, we can make the magic happen. And so I think the biggest thing for us is learning how to be good communicators. So that's what I do. Over the years, I've done all kinds of crazy events, lots of fun things, ginormous tech shows. Last summer, we hosted the Wnba All-Star Game. So that was a really exciting event that we get to bring to life. And the WNBA doesn't always get really amazing events like the NBA does. And so we were really able to kind of wow them because MGM Resorts, which is where I work, we own the Las Vegas Aces. And so that was a really cool thing. I also work with Barret Jackson Car Auction. So any of you that like cars and have ever been channel surfing in the middle of the night and you see the car auction, like I've been working with them for over a decade. And so again, that's a really cool event to bring to life literally you're bringing cars into the building and you're driving them on a stage back out and, you know, moving all the people around. So lots of things that we get to do and work with. We have an event center on our campus, Wnba Bay, as well as 2.1 million square feet of space. So we kind of do a little bit of everything when we host events. So.
Well, Heidi, since you're talking, why don't you just keep it talking and tell us about the greatest challenge you faced in your career and how did you overcome it? Because certainly you have faced some challenges at Mandalay Bay.
We have, absolutely. I will say, when this question's asked, and you and I have talked about this, you know, there's a couple of events that have occurred in my career path. And so I actually think the biggest challenge is right now, what we're in, being in the middle of this COVID pandemic and literally bringing people together for face-to-face meetings has just basically been put on pause. And we don't know when we get to really kind of move forward in big numbers again. So that has been something that has impacted us in so many ways. And we have to adapt quickly as the things change. And so I think that's really our biggest challenge that we've ever faced. That being said, coming from Mandalay Bay, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about October 1 and living through that. So October 1st, 2017, a mass shooter opened fire on a concert venue across the street from Mandalay Bay, creating the largest and the most casualties of any mass shooting. And I, at that time, was the director of convention services and working, and I actually had an event that was loading in to kick off, and they were to have an event at the festival lot the next week. And so going through that tragedy and helping with the guests and the property, and then the group that was live, like getting them through it, and then ultimately turning the space over and having another event, moving a party that was for 17,000 people across the street back onto our campus and making that happen in about 7 days was a pretty unbelievable experience. The thing I would say that I took from that, it takes a village, and everybody in our community rallied around us. And on the day after the shooting, I remember walking into the front desk because we had various tasks that we had to do. And there were housekeepers, managers from every hotel in the strip, not just MGM Resorts properties, but everyone, the Venetian, standing there in uniform, like, you tell us where you need us and we'll go work. So I think that that's something that I can take from some of the biggest tragedies, is that when you need people, they will stand up, they will help you. And as a community, you can pull through anything. And I think that that's what will happen with COVID. We will get through this. We are all going to pull together, and we will meet again safely and really have some amazing events in the future based on the things that we've been planning and learning and doing in the back end of things while we can't meet face to face.
Yeah. Every time I've heard you talk about October 1, I get a lump in my throat. It's hard to think about and hard to hear. So now, Doreen, tell us, same question. Talk to us about a challenge that you faced in your career and how you overcame it.
So one of the ongoing challenges of events is the securing of what you've ordered for your event on site. So, and I just want to, anybody that's getting into this field, don't ever assume that because something shipped, it's going to arrive to where it's supposed to be at the right time. I cannot tell you the biggest, what keeps me up at night, what has stopped the joy from my events is when something's lost in shipping, and it happens all the time. So I just want to say, if you're doing an event, every single flipping item that you're bringing to that event needs to be on a spreadsheet with a tracking number, who's sending it, where's it going, how is it getting there? And if you don't stay on top of it, something's going to go wrong. So one of the tragedies that happened, I was doing a large event for a corporate client in New Jersey, and the UPS truck with all of the gifts, and I'm talking $150,000 worth of custom made gorgeous gifts, got stuck and rolled off the road in a snowstorm and got stuck in the snow, and the event had to happen. And how I overcame that is, thank God for Google Maps. I literally found the truck. I hired snowmobiles to go get my stuff, and I gave them cash so they could bribe the guy to give me my product to get it to the event on time. And it's stuff like that. Like when it comes to never say die, no stone unturned. When you're doing events, you know, a lot of your planning, and it's a lot of pre-planning. It boils down to, you know, last minute changes, rush orders, and then things are getting FedExed in. And I'm telling you, every single event, there's something missing, and it will ruin the whole experience, especially for your VIPs or your activations. You know, I mean, Candace knows this. When you're doing an event and you've got 50 brands that you're representing at your event, everybody wants to make sure their booth, their stuff, their activation is stellar, and you're coordinating all these efforts. So I would say my constant worry is what's going to arrive and making sure it does. And it's worth every extra effort to ride that train hard.
I love hearing you talk about organization and planning, and I hope my students who are on this chat are hearing her say that.
Saying.
Candace, I'm going to move to you now and ask you if you could share with us a little bit about how the industry has changed in your time and some of the shifts that you've seen in recent years.
Sure, and I'm looking at the majority of the folks on here, and everyone looks pretty young. And so, if I could tell you, when I first started in this industry, this wasn't even really an industry. It wasn't entitled events or experiences or experiential. When I first got my first job, it was called employee relations, but it really was events. And I say all that to say that events and experiential has come so far and has almost become like an actual, it's the other person. It has its own personality. It is the thing that people want to be a part of. And it has become so popular, obviously apart from what's been going on this year, but it has become so popular and so important to marketing mixes that, it's the standout. And I say all that to say, in my 20-year career, we have gone from not being able to really put a title on what this is to everyone wanting to have, an experiential division or an event, a signature program for themselves. So there are real opportunities, really flooding the market and everybody wanting to have a division and trying to figure out how can they take their ideas and bring them to life? How can they create something that people want to touch? Because that's to me is the channel where things change for people, where they become really aligned with that brand or that idea or that concept, when they can touch, feel, experience it with other people. That's really what events are really about. Obviously, I think we are all trying to figure out now how we, how the industry has changed. Obviously, COVID has changed the industry significantly, but not counting us out. I would say, we as industry professionals are trying to figure out how we bring, pieces and elements of the event industry back into the mix. And part of that is virtual. So, and digital programming. And what I would say to any of the students on this call is that, being able to have an expansive understanding of how you can deliver an event in multiple forms, inclusive of digital, is a skill set that I would say is not something that's going to go away. And I think from a brand perspective, whether you are, you are at the brand or you are at a venue or whatever the case is, if virtual or digital experiences you can reach more people. And I think that it will be an addition as we move out of COVID. It will be something that people will keep in their marketing mix. And so there would be one thing I would say, as how I think our industry is evolving, is pushing, what this has done has pushed innovation in a way that everyone is trying to figure out how they cut through the content clutter. How are they going to deliver content to people? There's so much content. So it's pushing innovation to the brink. And I think as students, one thing I would say is, don't count digital and virtual out. You really want to figure out how you can learn more about that. There's also a lot of digital certification courses. So I just wanted to say that I think that digital and virtual is here to stay,
even as we go back to live or hybrid or whatever you want to call it. All of it's evolving, but I just went and counted.
And Chris, I'm going to come to you now and sort of build off of what Candace has been talking about. We've seen things like drive-up concerts and virtual everything. What changes or shifts do you think that we've seen in the events industry that are here to stay?
Well, we've
Or that you're most excited about?
Well, I don't know about excited, but I see more cleaning and sanitizing and making sure that event spaces are pure. Just this week we've met with folks that do drone spraying and sanitization, and so we're just trying to figure out what all that means. We've spent money on electrostatic sprayers and chemicals and training to make sure that our guests, our performers, our promoters, our employees, everything are all in the safest environment that we possibly can put them in. Mask protocols. I work in a 18,000 seat arena. There's not much I can change about that. We have a roof, we have an air conditioning system, we can recycle outside air, we can turn the air over several times in minutes. So there's things that we can do operationally, but I think the biggest thing that's coming is just spending money on infrastructure like hand sanitizers and stickers and wayfinding and just directional signage, just so people know where to go and how to get to a bathroom. Because this building, not everybody comes every other week. We do concerts that range from Sesame Street to rock and roll. So people don't come all that often and may not know where they're going. So signage is going to be important moving forward for us.
Yeah, same sort of direction, Heidi. Talk to us about logistics and operations and how the pandemic is changing logistics and operations for the event industry.
Yeah, I mean, Chris just summed up so many things perfectly. The conversation for the last 6 months has been on electrostatic spraying, high touch points. How do we, come up with like screening and how do we make things safe when you come into the building? And so all the things he said, we're also doing. We actually just applied for our GBAC certification, which is Chris, help me, I know the initials. It's the Global Bio, what is it? I have to find it. Global Bio Risk Advisory Council. So that's something that we're getting. And that certification is literally because of COVID. And so those are all things that are changing. But I do think that the hybrid components and how do we make the virtual event and that experience something that people enjoy. I think that all of us have probably spent a lot of time doing trainings, having meetings on virtual platforms, and it's really easy to tune it out, right? Like it's not always engaging and it's not always exciting, and you can very quickly just like close your camera off and go off and do whatever else you're working on. And so how do we engage people from a virtual platform? So I think you'll see things with entertainers, and I think you'll see kind of more getting that communication and the dialogue moving with that. I know we've kind of been working within MGM Resorts. We have what we refer to as MREP, and there are internal decor, event planning, like the actual kind of creative folks who can help design events. And they've started working on different ways to enhance our kind of hybrid thing along with our IT team. So I think you're going to see a lot more of that. And ultimately, we are all going to be working on how do we make the things we used to do. For example, you would have like water stations just set up throughout the foyer. You can't do that now. There has to be somebody serving the water to you. And so how do we do that and it be cost effective for everyone? How do we make it safe? How do we just service the events? I think we haven't talked much about food and beverage and what that looks like, but that shift when you have meetings, you can't have a traditional buffet. And for us, we could easily feed 17,000 people during a convention. We no longer can have a buffet that they can just run through. It's more of a marketplace, kind of grab and go, keep things without, you know, people touching it. And so it's just a lot of things to think about, but I think collectively there's so many amazing people working on it and brainstorming and coming up with best practices that it will actually make for better experiences as we move down the road. And, you know, I don't think there's ever been a problem with things being too clean, and knowing that this is at the forefront. In hotels, cleaning's always been something that you do overnight when no one's looking, and people don't really, it's kind of taboo when they're cleaning, and that's out the window. Now people want to see that, and they want to know that everything has been sanitized and it's safe. So it's just a big shift. The other big thing for us, we are launching, it's called Convene with Confidence. And what we will be doing is we're piloting some events this year where we will actually work with Clear. So, you know, if you go to the airport and you have Clear, kind of like TSA, we're going to partner with Clear, and we're going to actually have rapid testing on site. So if an event wants to actualize, we are setting it up to have rapid testing. And the rapid testing right now, you can get results in about 20 minutes. We're hopeful that by next year we could be at under 10, if not into that 2 to 3 minute. And then you'll know immediately that you're kind of safe to enter into the area. So you could kind of almost consider it like a mini bubble, if you will. Like the NBA just did a big bubble. It was kind of, and NHL did a bubble, and we'll almost have that same, because in order to enter into the meeting space, you have had to go through that. And then Clear is working on the ability to communicate. So if you have an app with Clear and you kind of upload your information, and then again, if you've tested positive, they can very quickly talk to anyone within the group that you've been in contact with. So a very exciting thing that we're going to do, and hopefully again will help pave the way to when the events really can start coming back in a lot larger scale size, because right now they're pretty small events that we're doing.
Gia, if I could just jump in, just to piggyback off what Heidi was saying, which I actually find really interesting. But what she was saying is from the, the venue perspective, and as a, we work directly with the venues, and I was working with a counterpart in New Orleans at the convention center, and they are also talking about them getting this similar certification. But we also, if you're managing large crowds or previously large crowds, or whenever we get back to crowds going to events, thinking about your registrations and, getting people into the building and not being able to have everyone come in all at once, and figuring out how you're going to social distance the lines, and managing maybe timed registrations for people where a certain amount of people are in the building at a certain time, and then they go out and the next group comes in. And so I think thinking through registrations as a logistical change for us is something that we hadn't really thought about before, but we have to think about controlling the numbers of people that are inside the venue or experiencing that area at a specific amount of time. And then we've also, just from a logistics perspective, also discussed having times where we empty the venue out, sanitize, and then we open it back up. So there's times during the day where we're thinking through, we open at 9, and 9 to 12 we're open, and there's time registrations that work through that. But then from 12 to 1 or 12 to 2 is the full sanitization of that space again. And all of our partners, all of the brands that are activating on the floor have to have sanitation implementation in their spaces during that time. And then 2 o'clock, 2 to 3, we're letting in, or 2 to 4, we're letting in a new group of people for them to experience. So there's a lot to think about. Social distancing is not necessarily going away. So we're going to have to be thinking about that as we're dealing with getting people into buildings and managing crowds.
A lot to really think about. So I'm going to shift gears a little bit, because I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of sick to death to talking about the virus. So I want to talk about just event planning in general, and I'll go to Doreen with this question. So I know there's a lot of misconceptions about what it's like to be an event planner. Tell me what you have heard, that misconceptions that you would like to preach and correct for us now.
That events, have unlimited budgets. I mean, spend so much time on a budget, adjusting a budget, lowering a budget, changing a budget. And, you know, events, people have grand ideas and they get stuck on things that are very expensive to execute. So I think a misconception is that, you know, there's all the money in the world to plan a big event, you know, and that's just not true. Quite often you have to be incredibly resourceful in making an impact on your event, especially the larger the space. You know, you have a big footprint to cover. You know, you can't just, you know, paint the floor and call it a day. I mean, so I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that it's easy to fill up a negative space, and that there's unlimited money, and it's, you know, it's a piece of cake to get it all together. It is a painstaking journey through your senses, and your students and everybody doing events should like take this space that you're in and go through your five senses. What do I see? What do I smell? What do I hear? You know, really, really try to increase the sensory experience of the event. And so that's just, I think people think it's easy, and it's not. It's a lot. In fact, Heidi, God bless you, in Vegas, running around the Mandalay Bay, like whenever you do an event in something that big of a space, I've gotten shin splints from events, literally, like I couldn't walk anymore. So the amount of work in events is, it is tremendous. It's very rewarding, but it's incredibly taxing. You have to be physically fit to be an event planner. You're on nonstop. And like somebody like Heidi, like the amount of space just to walk through the Mandalay Bay, to find the missing box is going to kill you if you got to do it a lot of times. So no, it's just, it's a big area to fill, and it's a lot of work to get around. So
I really wish I had time to ask everyone on the panel that, but I do want to leave some time at the end for some questions. I've seen some start floating in our chat. But we've got a really important question that my PRSSA kiddos here at WVU were really interested in hearing from the panelists about. So Candace, I'm going to start with you because I was going to go to you next anyway. Talk to me about the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion in our industry, in the event planning industry.
Sure, and we could talk about our industry, but I think in general, I think it's important to be integrated throughout. And I think that, you know, when you're talking about an event, you know, you're wanting multiple groups of people to come to it, it's important to have, to be able to look through that lens. And I think it's important to have people on your team that can help you see through that lens. And I think that, you know, as we think about the content that we're trying to deliver, as well as the people that are working to deliver it, I think we've seen very much as a country how important it is, how diversity is important, as it is literally the fiber of what we're built upon. And so for me, you know, when people are asking me, how can we be more diverse, or how can we, you know, do this and that, you know, I think it's about, you know, if it's not immediately in your, you know, at your fingertips, you know, what partners can you work with, or, you know, how can you bring in other groups of people to help you expand what you're trying to deliver to different groups of people, and, you know, whether it's age, you know, various ages, multiple races, LGBTQIA, you know, we all have that responsibility, but I think it's, you know, we have to think beyond, you know, if it's not immediately in your network, you know, do you know someone you can reach out to, a partner that may be able to help you get to solving that? Like I said, sometimes you have to go a little bit just outside yourself to find the answer to that.
And I think that's, you use the word partner, and I just want to emphasize it because it's kind of a personal pet peeve of mine that people reach out to get diverse perspective and try to be inclusive, and they're like, can you volunteer your time for this? She said partner, so that means paid on the bill partner. So
Exchange, exactly.
So I'm going to open up the chat window now for folks to begin asking their questions. But as we do that, I'm going to ask Chris the same question I just asked Candace. Talk to me a little bit about the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the event planning industry.
Yeah, everything Candace just said is super important. You know, I am part of an organization. USC Athletics that is owned by the University of South Carolina, which ultimately is owned by the state of South Carolina. So we are, as diverse as we want to be, including, international populations. So, a couple of years ago, we had the opportunity to bring on a couple of exchange students as some interns, and watching a couple of Chinese nationals running around here and running laps around some of my guys really invigorated what they could bring to our organization. It was so much fun teaching and learning from them and being a part of how we could all work together and learn from one another. And it was incredible. So I really enjoyed that time, and it was kind of a first for us, and we'll continue to do things like that. So I really enjoyed bringing new folks in, new perspectives.
And I love how everybody talked about perspectives in sort of a different way. So it's not just race and ethnicity. It's not just LGBTQIA. It's also nationality, culture. So lots of different ways to think about diversity, equity, and inclusion for our industry. So now I'm going to move to the chat. We've got about 20 minutes left of the session, and certainly I could come up with questions to have these folks tell stories, because I have the great advantage of knowing many stories from many of them, but I want you all to have a chance to have your questions answered. So first question comes from Mike Benning. Mike has asked, can the panelists provide any innovative ideas for the distribution of swag? And Dee, I think I'm going to kick that one to you first.
Oh, yeah. So we were doing an event at Williams-Brice Stadium with South Carolina Bank and Trust, and they decided to hand out these bandanas that said, like defense, and anyhow, they ordered 40,000 pieces, and they called me up the night before the game, and they said, how are we going to get these out to people? We don't have enough, enough areas. So we literally got rolling suitcases on wheels. We logoed them with their logo, and we, put like 100, 200 of these bandanas. And then we got teams that were dressed up in their shirts, and we went around the tailgating area and we handed them all out, and it was really social and it was nice. And we were just gifting everybody. It was like one giant giftorama. So that's one way, is get large bags and hand them out, and your people handing them out could be decorated with the swag as well. And can I just say one thing about diversity in events? I just want to add to your environment, the signage that welcomes somebody. When somebody comes to your event, no matter where it is, if they immediately see that all are welcome with a sign, something that says that all are included here, all are welcome here. And also, when people are in line, they're bored and they're not communicating to each other. And if you have like a giant 8-foot poster asking a question and hand out markers, and people can write stories, like I did it for a Y'all Fest, a book festival. It was like, who's your favorite villain? Who's your favorite hero? And it was just such a team building effort as people were standing in line to an event. It made everybody feel like they were part of something that was happening, and we hit them before they even walked across the line of events. So just diversity and signage is really, bringing that positive message to your events from the get-go is a strong way to do that. Wow.
All right. So I've got a couple more questions coming in. Carrie Ring has asked the question, in your opinion, what will happen to the events industry, and when do you think we will see the new normal? Heidi, you want to take that one?
Oh man, let me get my 8-ball and start shaking it. Like, that's our joke in the office, is like, who's got the 8-ball? It is $1 million question. So, I don't know. I don't know the answer to when, but I think that we will, and this is, again, I'm going to paraphrase a leader within my organization, we're going to crawl, walk, then run. And so right now we're crawling, and we are very slowly allowing events. Every state is different. That's the other thing for all of you looking to plan events and move forward in this. Every state is operating different. So what California is doing, what Nevada is doing, what Arizona is doing, what Florida is, they're all different. And so you have to understand the market in which you're hosting the event and what they will allow. I think that as we move forward, you're going to see, like we talked about early, more hybrid things coming into place. I think, honestly, my gut tells me that it'll be, end of second quarter before we really see large events of any scale happening. And even then, I think it'll be not the scale we used to see. I think that won't be until 22. I really just think that we'll have too many factors. Companies financially aren't going to be able to host the big events, or you have the people who just aren't comfortable traveling, and then you have to take into account international events. So many of the events we have that have been large scale productions, and they had a huge international population coming, and that's going to be restricted still. So I think we'll look at next year, and 21 it's going to be a growing year in 21, and then I think in 22 you'll be able to really kind of see things move forward in what were more normal circumstances. And I saw Candace shaking her head, so I think she's on the same page.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I think Heidi, you're spot on. Like your ball, whatever, shaking your ball, you're spot on. I agree about 2021. I think is going to be a transitional year, and I think that in terms of I do believe 2022 is when it'll start to look a little bit more how it used to look.
Well, Candace, I'm going to come to you with this question too. The question comes from Brittany Bussey. Brittany, I should know how to say your last name. Sorry, honey, if I said it wrong. With exclusively virtual events, how do you connect vendors or sponsors with attendees since they are missing that in-person interaction that they would normally get in an event?
So what we have done, we've tried to do a multitude of things at varying degrees. We have our own streaming platform. And so we've been able to stream our virtual events on our own streaming platform. And in that, we've created, partner rooms where people can go. Previously a partner would have had, an actual booth activation or something that people could go into. So we've created for some of our brand partners where you can go into the room and there's special things for you, so you sign up for a special offer, or you fill out a photo mosaic, or you can go take a picture. We've done things like that, things where you fill something out and we'll ship you a gift bag. So we've tried to hold on to some of the things that they're used to doing, but just tried to tweak them in a way that that we can actually handle in virtual. And then there are obviously things that brands come to us and they want to literally replicate what they do live in virtual, and that's just simply not possible with every single thing. But I've seen also some cool things where, people are, they do these cool networking rooms, or, they do these, almost networking pair ups. There's lots of different things that you can do. Virtual marketplace, in-room shopping with links. So I think, and there are a lot of partners now, a lot of event companies, agencies that are pivoting to doing these, highly visual experiences virtually. And I think, for partners, there's an opportunity to bring those things to the table if you don't have them in-house, to create a 360 opportunity for them and with them, with the attendees.
One of the things I've heard from a lot of the event planners, many of you included, is we're hungry for creative ideas. So as you have them, share them. We would love to see creative and innovative ways to go about doing things. So the next question is from Sean Henry, and I'll leave this open. Whoever speaks first may have it, because I think all of you are probably qualified to answer it. But his question is, outside of internships, what's a good starting position to be in the events industry today?
I would say before we move off of internships, I've always told the students that interview me to be broad with their internships, meaning if you want to be in event planning or marketing or whatever division you sort of want to go to, also do an operations intern to get some taste of what that means and how each division is going to interact with one another. So, and it also makes you a better hire because you are broadening how your skills and what you're capable of and what you've known to you can produce. Additionally, I would add, about 20 years ago, I worked at a restaurant with a young lady that's on this panel moderating here, and she and I mean, it's invaluable what we learned back in the day trying to provide a customer service at a national chain restaurant, and the environment that we created, and it's just sort of stuck with me on what the skills that I learned working on a team and producing food for a family night out, and we're still doing that. We're still grabbing or we're still looking for people's disposable income in just a sort of a different way. And so the customer service that I learned 20 years ago, I will always appreciate. So it doesn't need to be a restaurant, but finding some way to showcase your customer service on a resume and a cover letter, I think is super important.
I want to jump in because I think that you're so right, Chris. You can take any job and figure out ways to do something within that job that will ultimately be an experience you can sell as an event planner. I worked for a trucking company, literally a trucking company, but they had employees and they wanted to have employee events. So I was the first person to say, I'll plan the employee event, raised my hand, started doing it. My first planning events started in sorority and undergraduate. I was like the first person to be like, oh, you want to have a formal? I'll plan the formal, and would always take on those roles just to do it. And then ultimately, when I was hired at Mandalay Bay, the trucking company and sorority is like literally the catalyst that got me into the door, because as Candace said, when I started like event planning, like that wasn't really a degree, like that wasn't something that was an opportunity. I kind of just happened into it. So you don't necessarily have to have an official internship. You can look at the job you're currently working in and figure out ways to do something that is planning an event. And then you just put it on your resume and you sell it in an interview.
There you go.
Awesome.
I want to say also like brand activations, like whenever you go to an event, if you can support any sort of brand activations, because they do giveaways and they need people handing out stuff. And, it's not just like a lazy thing here, let me hand you something. It's really connecting with that customer and trying to, get them their attention and offer them something of value. So that's a good internship and a way to really find a brand you like, and then you'll get excited about what they're doing to promote their products. So that level of promotion really dovetails into events nicely.
I think we have time. Oh, go ahead, Candace.
Well, I was just going to say, I wouldn't discount also volunteering for, I've actually hired a lot of my volunteers over the years because these are people that I know that I can count on, people I know understand what it is that we're doing. And they literally are a first person that I think of when it comes to an opportunity. And, it has turned out pretty well for us and for the volunteer now employees, I would say. So I wouldn't discount, if you have the time to say, if you know someone in the industry or someone is having something, I'll help you with that, or I'll help you with that, because people remember that when opportunities become available.
Yep. And references too. They refer you.
Absolutely.
I think we've got one more time for one more question from the chat. And Miss Christian, my first name is G and everybody says it wrong. So I'm gonna try not to slaughter your name. I do apologize. And Desi Linlow have both sort of asked questions in the same sort of vein. It's that challenge of, is there a more creative way to do webinars? And if there's not, how do you improve that experience, and how do you get people there? So I'm just, again, you all took turns so brilliantly. So I'll throw that question out to the floor. And if nobody talks, I'm gonna start calling on people like I do in class.
It's a struggle. I mean, there's just so many things going on, and it's really a struggle. I mean, like, look at how good you guys did to get people to come here. You have experts that people want their opinions. You provide something of value, but it's because it's so saturated and it's what's needed. It's just difficult right now. I always think, find a different angle, find something of value. Make a forced connection that wouldn't normally connect. Find, like Candace says, find a way to distribute something afterwards, something that's going to benefit them. Like when events used to be, be part of this, we want your money to be a sponsor and we're going to throw your logo on a t-shirt and it's just a logo drop. To me, that is nothing of value. So whoever is involved, you've always got to make a win-win situation. And that is one of the things that I think has evolved our industry, is people that really make it valuable for these brands to connect and not just drop a logo. And a lot of people still say, just market this. I'm doing a webinar, market it. Well, excuse me, what is of a value to it? And what are those jewels that are going in the crown that's going to make somebody at least want to put it on enough to walk in? So you've always got to think of that win-win-win, and adding value to somebody is always the road to go down. It's a hard road though right now. I understand that.
Yeah, there's so much, the market is currently saturated because everyone is home, everyone is creating content, everyone's a content creator. And so to cut through the clutter, you've got to really figure out, like, how am I going to be innovative, and how, as Doreen was saying, why do people care to tune into my event versus somebody else's? And so I think, sending things to people in advance, how you engage the audience with the show. How are you going to get them? Is there ways to, like plugins to bring the audience in? Are there, possible, can you shoot part of it in a studio where, you have an audience wall? I don't know if you've seen lately, all of the new, all the daytime shows are doing audience walls. Mm-hmm. Instead of having people inside of the building, they're doing audience walls. Well, we can also do that with events. Even the Wnba is doing it as well. They're doing audience walls for the audience. But you can do a portion of your event where you have a host or whatever the case, and they are talking back and forth with an audience wall. And then you also have the virtual show going on as well online. I mean, we have to think through how we're going to cut through the clutter and really start to push innovation, and like how are we separating what we're doing from everybody else, because people are really going to start to not care. I see someone in the chat talking about how they've seen attendance drop, and we're going to keep seeing that if we don't continue to innovate.
Right.
And Deidre, when I asked her the same question, Deidre West, who I mentioned at the top of the show, she's working on an event for tomorrow, or else she would have been your moderator tonight, because she is a brilliant event planning pro and a good friend. And when I asked her the question, she's like, are you reading BizBash? Are you reading Event Marketer? Are you following the trades for our industry? Because they're reporting on what's cutting edge. They're telling you who's doing what and who's doing what in innovative ways. So it's a really great place, I think, to look for inspiration and ideas that you can get your creative juices flowing. So we're down to our last couple of minutes. And so I've got a closeout question for all of our panelists. And that question is, can you give me in a word or two and no more than a sentence, what skills or traits do emerging professionals, whether students or new professionals interested in the events industry, need to have to stand out? And we'll start with Doreen.
Innovation, creativity, persistence, drive, never give up attitude, offer something different. You got to push hard, be creative.
Candace. I think you're muted, hon.
Yep. Organization, follow-up, accountability, and I would say your biggest skill set is your ability to problem solve in the moment.
Mm.
Absolutely. Once had a boss tell me that my job was to problem solve, period. That was the job. Heidi, what about you?
I think problem solving, absolutely. Being an independent thinker, being okay to like ask the questions, figure it out on your own, and then being someone who can make a decision and know why they made the decision and explain why they made the decision and stand behind it. And if you can do those things, you can be very successful in this industry.
And I'm going to say hi to Gabby because I haven't seen her in forever on my way to Chris. Tell me the traits.
The trait.
Oh, Chris.
Sorry, I was like me.
I talked about customer service a lot, and I always do, and I'll continue to do that. I think, the ability to work long and awful hours and always have a positive attitude is super important. We all get grouchy and we all get tired, but staying caffeinated and on task is super important. So there's 1,000 things, but those are the ones that come to mind first.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us, and special thanks to Candace, Doreen, Heidi, and Chris. Y'all give them the applause that they much deserve. As we wrap up, I just want to remind you to visit integrate.wvu.wvu so you can find out about other upcoming sessions, recordings of previous episodes, and to subscribe to receive updates for both Integrate sessions as well as the podcast and other blog related topics. So it's so good to see so many familiar faces, and oh look, Jessica Foreman, former students, friends from around the country. Thank you all for joining us tonight, and a special thanks to our panelists for bringing so much wonderful expertise and rich discussion. And that's it. Y'all have a good night.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, y'all. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.